Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of our Cherwell technical deep dives. Today, we're going to be talking about KPIs with a focus on matching KPIs to critical success factors. My name is Tabitha Ishman, and I'm the marketing manager of Excalibur Data Systems. And I just wanted to welcome all of you to the webinar today and then talk about a few logistics before we go ahead and get started. So the lines are muted and the webinar is being recorded. The recording will be sent via email to all participants tomorrow. It'll also be available on our YouTube channel and our website. And we'll answer questions at the end in a Q&A session, but you can ask questions at any time during the presentation just by typing them into the question window. And now just a little bit about Excalibur Data Systems. We are a leading edge consulting firm guiding organizations through their digital transformation journey. We work with strategic partners and leverage best of breed enterprise service management technologies. In doing so, we help create next generation solutions for our customers. And I know we have a lot of great content to get to today, so I'd just like to introduce both of our speakers. So I have with me Robert Goguen, President of Excalibur Data Systems and Senior Solutions Architect and Consultant with over a decade of experience in the Cherwell platform. He also has 20 plus years in IT, ITSM delivery, and service desk, and he's an innovator that streamlines workflow and support processes for increased productivity and customer satisfaction. Also with us today is Sean Doherty, Solutions Architect with Excalibur Data Systems with over 3 years working in the Cherwell platform with a focus in ITSM administration and delivery. With over 18 years of experience in IT, service desk, and much more, he's also very passionate about creating solutions to elevate customer experiences and user engagement in the Cherwell platform, as well as the Cherwell ecosystem. So to get us started off today, welcome Rob.
Thank you, Tabitha. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. This is a webinar that we've been talking about wanting to do for quite some time, centered around KPIs, metrics that drive KPIs, because oftentimes we get a lot of questions from our customers around, I want to start developing our KPIs. We want to start putting goals forward in our organization, whether it's at the organization level, the team level, or even the personal level on the employee side. And we often get a lot of questions around, well, what should I set them to, and what metrics should I be recording, and various things like that. And so these questions come up quite frequently to our consulting team, and from that we said, hey, why not do a webinar about it? So I'm going to open this up first to talk a little bit about KPIs, talk a little bit about the different metrics that are recorded that you want to consider recording around your KPIs. And then Sean is going to go from there and actually talk specific about certain metrics within the Cherwell environment and how you can leverage dashboard technology to realize those numbers and actually start to make management decisions to be able to manage by metrics. So let's first talk a little bit about APIs. Do I need them? How do I use them? So on and so forth. So KPIs are basically the standard or the bar that you're going to set for your organization to say, how well are we doing this? How are we going to gauge where our performance is? And so for every organization, the KPIs can be different, and where you set those KPIs can differ, and they can actually change throughout the year, believe it or not. And when you're defining your KPIs, a couple of things to take into consideration. Where are the areas that we need to set our goals or set how well we're delivering a service? And where that comes from a lot of the times is organizations first need to take a baseline. They have to understand, where are we at currently with our current service delivery? How well do we actually deliver the services that we offer to our customers, whether the customers are external to the organization, whether they're internal to the organization? And so from that baseline information, where do I set the bar in order for me to move towards to get to where I want to be? So for example, I'll use mean time to resolution. If our mean time to resolution on our tickets is really, really poor, if it's taking us 3 or 4 days to resolve a simple ticket, you're going to want to say, okay, And we have to make that a goal. We want to increase our performance when it comes to our mean time to resolution. So it's important that when we're setting where the KPI is, the key performance indicator, when do we know we're doing a good job and where's that bar, where's that line? Then we're going to look at what are our current numbers? Where do we want to be? But where do we set the KPI? Setting the KPI, you want to make the KPI challenging, but you don't want it to be unachievable. For example, if you're constantly recording, 50% compliancy rate to our SLAs, and you want to be at 90%, if you set your KPI to 90%, you're going to constantly never be hitting that number. And that results in low morale. It results in lower esprit de corps when it comes to your organization and the staff. So you're going to say, okay, let's set our key performance indicator here. Let's set that as a goal and then say, in 2 quarters, we want to take it from 50% to 60% kind of thing. And mark that as the achievable spot where we can say, you know what, we're improving our performance, we're getting to where we want to be. And then as you start to routinely hit those numbers, then move the bar up a little bit further, okay? In that process, the metrics that drive that key performance indicator, that drive how well are we performing the service, can help you greatly understand possibly issues or problems within your organization that you were not even aware of. And using KPIs or the metrics that drive KPIs will allow you to isolate where the problem areas are within your organization, make management decisions based on actual data, and then make adjustments to the way that you're doing things to create better efficiency in order to improve your service delivery. And I think that that's important to understand, is that the metrics that drive the KPIs can be used to help you make management decisions on like, hey, I think we need another person because our workload is really, really crazy. That's great if you go to management and they're going to say, well, okay, you think you need another person? Well, we're getting swamped. But if you're able to take actual quantifiable data and move it forward and show management, listen, we're opening this number of tickets, but we're only closing this number of tickets, and our ratio is really at the lunch. We need to increase our bandwidth or become more efficient in how we're doing what we're doing, or a combination of the two. But you need quantifiable data. And so today's world, we store a lot of data. We're tracking an enormous amount of data when it comes to our tickets within our platforms. The information that we're recording is great. More data, the better, but not all data is relevant. And so you have to know how to pick out what pieces of information are important and then bring them forward to help you make decisions. And so Sean is going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But I wanted to continue going through some of the things that are here on the slide here. So, KPIs provide that understanding to the management team and the members of those teams, just how well we are stacking up to our expectations and our goals. And that's what KPIs allow you to do. And when you're developing your KPIs, like I said before, you're going to want to make sure that the KPIs are achievable, but yet challenging. And when you use the information that drives those KPIs, you can help identify the issues within your organization or within your IT when it comes to your workflow processes and how you're doing things. And it may unearth opportunity for changing process workflow to make it work more efficiently, potentially automating some areas that are slowing the process down, being able to identify potentially teams or groups or processes that are really slow, which are causing you to not hit your numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the metrics and the data that drive those KPIs that can really help you make decisions within IT. Last but not least, you're always going to want to reevaluate your KPIs periodically. If your KPI is set at, hit 60% for first call resolution and you're constantly in the 70s, well, obviously it's time to up the bar a little bit, make it challenging, but don't make it unachievable, and constantly try to push that performance, but also celebrate with your teams, with your organization, when you're able to successfully hit those key performance indicators. Make it an event. Say, hey, look, guys, great job for this quarter. We hit our numbers. This is fantastic. And sort of use that as a morale booster inside the team. And it can really, really help increase that morale on the team as a whole, which will then create greater work effort and work efficiency within the team dynamics. So most of all of this can be achievable using a series of dashboards inside the Cherwell service management platform. You can take a lot of this information, visually display it, aggregate the information, and present the information in a way that makes sense. It's easily tracked, it's live, it's right there, and the information will speak to you, and then you'll be able to make sound decisions on how you want to move forward. So Sean is going to go through a number of the different metrics that you should consider when developing your KPIs, what types of information that you're going to want to record, and how it's relevant to your organization to have those numbers. One of the biggest things that we run into whenever people purchase Cherwell or move to the Cherwell platform is we get this, hey, I want a dashboard. Great. And then they give you this huge list of metrics that they want to record. And then we'll go back and say, why do you need to know this? And how does this help you make decisions? One of the biggest mistakes that new customers do make is they want every metric in the world, and their dashboard is huge and very cluttered, and a lot of the information just doesn't help them make management decisions. Keeping in mind that there are really 3 tiers of dashboards. There's operational dashboards that people use to do their job when they're creating the tickets and working the front line. There's middle management dashboards that help team leaders and supervisors managers manage their team or manage a group of teams. And then there's executive level dashboards that is a look at the IT organization as a whole and look right across the board in terms of all my teams and all my groups and all my service delivery. So when Sean goes through a demonstration, he's going to show you some examples of different dashboards and how they're collecting this information, how they're presenting this information. And a great deal of this is more geared towards that middle management to upper middle management sort of space where you can make IT decisions based on the metrics and the KPI data that you're getting. And if you're on the front line, working that front line, then you'll have a better understanding when you're going through this webinar of here are the metrics that matter to middle management, and here's the information that metrics will tell us about our team and about how we're doing our jobs, and how management can use this information to help structure and modify process in order to create greater efficiencies or get you additional resources if required, if it's identified as saying, hey, we really have a bandwidth issue. We have more stuff coming in than going out, and we really need to balance that out, whether that's a process change, adding more bodies, et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Sean, and I'll let Sean continue with the webinar.
Thanks very much, Rob. First off, welcome to our KPI webinar, everybody. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about some dashboard technology within Cherwell first, because dashboard technology in Cherwell is very powerful and very robust, and it gives you real-time data, okay? It allows you to drill into the widgets that are on the dashboard and get actually deep down into the system, into tickets, into other pieces of the system, so you can see that information real time, and you have that at your fingertips. Reports are great, but sometimes dashboards are just a lot more robust and better. Now, in this case with Cherwell, the dashboard is only limited by one's imagination and the abilities to create the widgets, searches, queries that a dashboard will use to display this information for people, either for an individual as a day-to-day working dashboard for a technician, a dashboard for a team, or a dashboard for management or the executives, okay? Now, in some respects, then, what you're going to do is with this dashboard technology, we're talking about SLAs, metrics, KPIs, etc. So first off, when you're talking about an SLA, you're talking about a service level agreement. In that case, it's defining the level of service that is expected by the customer, whether they're an internal or an external customer, versus a KPI, which is KPI measures the performance of a person, a team, a department, or the organization as a whole, okay? And as Rob indicated, SLAs will give you the baseline performance expectations, where KPIs will give you the information on efficiency and success in meeting the organization or team's goals and expectations, all right? So if KPIs will give you the information to make informed decisions from the SLA metrics. And one way to think of it is an SLA is a test, but a KPI is a report card of how you're doing overall. All right. So when you think about metrics for a KPI, what are some of the things that you would want to look at? And in choosing those metrics, some of the things can be very basic, some can be more elaborate, but some of the basic things they can be such as total ticket counts, total ticket counts broken down by incidents or service requests or ticket types, okay? Number of tickets open for each team, number of tickets closed for each team, tickets open and closed by a technician, open and closed by day, week, month, maybe even year. Also, you have to consider something called first call resolution. How many tickets are being opened and closed on first call resolution? All right. Other things you can potentially look at is how long tickets have been open. Have they been open 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 45 days? I mean, let's face reality. If we're dealing with IT, if you have tickets that are open for 45 days, you've got an issue there. And that would cause any manager concern to say, I need to drill into this and say, hey, what's going on, right? Also, you can also do KPIs and metrics for services. So your service, your category, your subcategory, you can break down all these, you can break down SLAs, seeing if your tickets for the service or the category or subcategory, those SLAs are being met for those particular services. And in some cases, depending on what you've done with your service catalog, there's some services that are more important than others. And it's more important that you make sure that you're meeting your SLA and you're meeting those KPI goals consistently. And if you're not, then maybe you have to look at what's going on with it. Also, the other thing you have to consider when dealing with SLAs, metrics, and KPIs is the working hours. Are working hours Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? Do you have a shorter after hours help desk or service desk team? Are you 24/7, 365? These are all things that need to be taken into consideration when you're looking for metrics and for KPIs and what you want to display to the individual technicians, teams, departments, organizations, okay? So the other aspect that we're going to look at today too is MTTR, mean time to resolution. Now, mean time to resolution can mean a lot to a lot of people or a lot of companies, and you have to look at the challenges with mean time to resolution. What is mean time to resolution? In most cases, mean time to resolution is a ticket gets created by a technician or an end user, and how long does it take to resolve that ticket from creation to closure? All right. The priority of a ticket also comes into play here, as when you have a P1 ticket, that mean time to resolution, which could be tied to an SLA, and that SLA could be kind of restrictive because it is a P1, has a different set of parameters. No matter what happens, you may be Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but that SLA is bound to that MTTR, and it says, if it's P1 ticket, you have to close this ticket within X number of hours, no matter what, no matter when it started or when it was put in, etc. So that can become important to you too. And that's also part of the challenges with trying to define a mean time to resolution for a ticket, okay? So time does come into play. Like I said, you have to consider the service desk hours as such, 24/7, 365, 9 to 5, etc. But also with mean time to resolution, you have to consider the type of ticket, okay? If it is an incident, it means somebody is having an issue, all right? And you want to have your mean time to resolution be quicker for an incident versus I need something from you as a service desk or a help desk, okay? You can spend a little bit longer working that ticket if it's a service request. But again, if it's tied to a certain type of SLA or a priority or even a VIP, you know, are you going to make that VIP, who's your CEO, wait 3 days for a brand new mouse, you know, because he's left his in a train station or in an airport or something? No, you're not going to do that. So there's different levels to these mean time to resolutions for the various tickets, okay? But what it all comes down to is it's the average time it takes to close that ticket, okay? And these mean time to resolutions that you can see on the dashboard in these KPIs, that tells you about the organization holistically, how the organization's doing, how your departments are doing, how the teams are doing, even down to the individuals within those teams, right? Now, as Rob suggested, sometimes with KPIs and metrics, these are buzzwords that are getting thrown about when we have brand new Cherwell customers and they want to see everything and anything, but then they come down to where they have to, excuse me, make a decision as to what they actually want to see. Clear the noise. Get the most important information in front of them, in front of their people, so that they know exactly what's going on at any point in time with just about anything or any department. So, and one of the things when you're formulating your KPIs to put on these dashboards, ask yourself some of these questions. Why is this information important to me as a manager, a CEO, a CFO, whatever? Why is it important to my team? Why is it important to my department or to my individual technicians? And also the factor of what kind of decisions am I looking to make from these KPIs? Is it resourcing of funds for a particular department? Is it staffing levels of a department? Is it increasing staffing levels at certain times of the year, pre-holiday seasons such as Christmas, Thanksgiving, etc.? You know, and when I look at this information, how can it help me make decisions? Is it clear to me what I'm seeing? Is it accurate? Is it understandable? That's the most important thing when you're looking at a KPI. The other question we really want to ask is, how can this information help me plan my resources? So you have, in some cases, enterprise resource planning. That's a big thing for some companies, especially larger ones. You know, do I need to bring in more IT people for this particular project? Because the project metrics that I'm reporting on are not sufficient. We keep failing. So how do I apply more people, more funds, etc. to it? That would be a very good question, especially if you're looking at rolling out a large project that you're deploying new software, etc. And you have to teach or train or define or whatever. You want to make it as successful as possible as an organization. All right. Now, as an example, when we talk about dashboards are very visual. They can be, they're a collection of what we call widgets. And in this case, the widget is a visual representation of a search or a query that help us align an organization or department for a particular KPI metric. All right. And the one thing we have to remember with dashboards, you can make them look really, really sexy, as we like to say sometimes, but also at the other end of the spectrum, you want to be able to have clear, understandable information. We try and advocate that when people use dashboards, they keep them simple and refreshing and easy to read. There's just kind of a industry standard gotcha that don't make it look like a bag of Skittles. Keep it fresh, clean, concise, ready to go. And that way everybody can understand it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come to the dashboard example here. Now, as I said, KPIs are driven by metrics, but let's talk about what the metrics are that drive KPI benchmarks for the organization, the team, or the department. And at the end of the day, what drives these metrics is the tickets. Tickets are what fuels this information, helps managers make decisions for others or with others, all right? Now, one of the most basic metrics that a lot of people and a lot of IT managers don't even realize that they are KPIs, that are KPIs, is the number of tickets opened today and closed today, or opened and closed this week, or opened and closed this month. It's a very basic KPI, and a lot of people don't realize it, but it is. In this case, for an example, this particular dashboard, we have a section here that says, I've opened X number of tickets today and I've closed them today. And as mentioned earlier, if you see a lot of tickets that are opened, but your closed tickets, your volume on closing tickets is very low, what's the issue here? That would stand out to any manager or any supervisor or any CEO right away, even team members, because they're saying, why are we getting so flooded with a huge amount of tickets? Is it because we've just had a new software product released and the training and the information that was given to the end user was not sufficient? Or is it the fact that we've had too many people on vacation and we just don't have enough staff to handle this volume of tickets, right? Do we have too many people out sick, right?
I think
So,
I think also, Sean, that this is a really important metric to understand around resourcing. This is a simple iteration of open and close, but this could be taken a step further. This could be broken down by day in
yes,
like a metrics widget or something like that, where resource planning and management, you can say, you know what, our ticket count is highest on Tuesdays and lowest on Thursdays and Fridays, or something to that effect. And if you're in an organization that has like part-time employees or swing shifts to cover high peak times, et cetera, this information could be looked at holistically over a period of time. And when you look at it over a period of time, you can say, you know what, due to, you know, the world where people are taking vacations and different things like that, and also the way our business works, our peak ticket count times are, you know, during these months or during these times or during this time of the month, and I got to make sure that I'm staffing it accordingly. And the best part about having this number is actually being able to say, hey, our ratio is in a negative. We're opening more tickets than we're able to close. So this requires further investigation. This requires, is there a problem with the process, or is there a problem with the team? Is it a human resource issue? Do we not have the right bandwidth? What do we do to address this? And if we weren't tracking this metric, there'd be really no way to know what this looks like in terms of, you know, trying to put the fire out before the fire becomes a forest fire kind of situation where you're falling behind, because this stat alone can impact greatly all your other statistics, your SLA compliancy, your MTTR, different things like that. So it's really important. It's a really important statistic. And then when you start to talk about putting a KPI around this, one would say, well, how do I, you know, want to reduce my, you know, are we doing a good job? It's the closure aspect of it. It's the ratio. So if I'm able to say for every, you know, for every one ticket open in a run of a day, I'm closing 2.3 tickets. Wow, that's fantastic. We want to keep that ratio above a certain number. And that could be the KPI. That could be the key performance indicator where we want to keep our ticket closure count at a certain ratio compared to our open ticket count, keep it above a certain number, and you can track that. And that would be the KPI itself that you're looking at, and you're saying, hey, we're over our number, we're doing a good job of making sure that we're closing more than we're opening.
right.
And if you start to get into a reverse of that, you can say we're failing our key performance indicator. We're opening more than we're closing. We have to do something to address that. But if you're not recording or looking at the data up front, how are you able to make that determination that this is even happening? Because your emotions aren't going to tell you. You're not going to say, I feel like we're not closing enough tickets. You need the actual data to say, hey, look, here's the problem. And in a middle management position or a team lead position, this is the data that's going to turn heads in management, where you say, hey, I don't feel like I need more people. I know I need more people. And here's the reason why I need more people, because we onboarded so many new customers, and look at our accounts. Our ratios are taking a hit. We're taking on water here. We have to plug the hole. And this is one of the ways we can do it, whether that's moving that's moving resources around, changing shift schedules, whatever it is, in order to compensate for that. So this is just one example of that. I just want to add on to that, Sean. Beyond just, it seems simple, but it could really make a big impact. This one simple metric can make a huge impact to how you're making decisions on your operations. So,
and plus, and also to support Rob's comments, I mean, really, when you think about it, sometimes having bad numbers is good because then you can concretely take information to management and say, look, we're getting slammed here. I need help. I need bodies. Let's change some people around. So in that case, you take a negative and turn it into a positive because you have the hard information to go and say, help, please help. And then
don't ever fear bad numbers, because sometimes bad numbers empowers you to be able to make the change you want to make within your organization to become better at IT, right? Because that is the quantifiable data that you can take forward and say, here are the hard numbers. Here's the hard situation. We need to make some changes. And sometimes that is what is needed. So,
and I mean, a simple metric such as open tickets versus closed tickets, I mean, that's just a simple widget and it's a basic KPI and it's the start of your journey on your KPI metrics and getting bigger and better and more detailed. Now, kind of the next place I want to go with a KPI metric is called FCR, or first call resolution. I'm not going to get too deep into it. We can do an entire webinar on first call resolution in itself. We're just going to touch on
isn't that the truth?
Yeah, we're going to touch on the topic and show how sometimes first call resolution stats can really help you. Okay. So as an example, a first call resolution is defined as a ticket that is created and closed all in one session. Now, first call resolution tickets primarily deal with tickets that have been created through a phone call or when a tech interacts with someone through a chat session, but using a true chat product like a product called Connect Now, and not just a chat bot that's been loaded into your portal or your web page or anything like that. Most chatbots are using AI interfaces to produce an answer to certain types of questions, but it's a real live interaction is more so important. Now, one thing about first call resolution is tickets that are created through email or a portal or an event-driven email that's created into a ticket, those aren't really fall into the realm of first call resolution tickets. Okay, it's more so interaction. Okay, because metrics about a first call resolution are important because it can show really how efficient your service desk is at dealing with issues and requests from the end users. Okay. Now, first call resolution can mean many things to many different companies. As a first call resolution ticket, you know, if the tech that is originally dealing with it hands it off to somebody else in a different team because they don't have the expertise to work on it, is it still a first call resolution? You know, how is that defined, right? But as an example here, we're looking at a dashboard where it's got some information about first call resolution for within working hours. So in January, our numbers are kind of low. So you have to think about, why are these numbers so low on first call resolution? Again, is it resourcing? Is it staffing? Is it new launch of products? It's a variety of things. But then you see you climb back up, and then in this case, the first call resolution numbers, the percentages completed for the months, take a nosedive. Again, this is something that needs to be drilled in further by the manager and management in order to see what's going on with this particular IT help desk or the service desk, because there's something amiss here. Now, the same thing is too, first call resolution, if you provide an after hours service desk, you know, you want to talk about after hours coverage too. How are they doing? Because this is all important, because again, it's having the right people in the right place at the right time in order to give the best service possible to your end user or customers. Okay. So it's questions that come up again, and some of these questions are fairly repetitive, but it's still, they're all very, very valid. All right. So That's a
Yeah, and
very
I think,
quick intro
sorry,
to
Sean.
first call resolution. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with FCR, again, every organization defines FCR a little bit differently. We have some organizations that open and close on the same day, regardless how many hands digged into the pot. You know, it must be the same person that opened and closed it. It must be, you know, however you define your FCR, you know, the fact remains first call resolution basically is a ticket we were able to deal with that did not go beyond that initial contact with the customer. We didn't have to go away, fix it, and come back at a later day. And that metric there gives us an idea of how effective are we at, I guess, plugging the leak on an incident before it starts to flood the boat, kind of thing. Where how effective are we at hitting the things right up front, getting them taken care of? And Sean pointed out something really important earlier. When you investigate FCR and what that number looks like, you know, we want to be at a 70% or we want to be at a 60%. That's the KPI, but the root cause of the FCR being low, and some of the things that Sean pointed out, is the FCR low because we just launched a new product and people are struggling with it? Is the FCR low because, you know what, it's an education issue? But that speaks to breaking that FCR out into greater metrics. You could break that out beyond just an overall FCR as we see here. We could break that down by service if you wanted to. Wow, first call resolution on these services, fantastic. We're able to bang out those problems, we're able to get them solved when they call, and we're done. But on other services, the FCR is really, really poor. We struggle with resolving this. And is it a struggle resolving it because of our education of our analysts doing the resolution? Or is it actually the end user? Are they getting themselves into a lot of hot water because they don't understand the product that they're using? So education is not just on the side of the service desk, but the education can also be on the side of the customer. So without having the metric and understanding it, there's no way to know that you even had this, you know, problem to address. So having this metric allows you to further investigate and make decisions, management decisions, on how you want to shift the way you're doing things, or educate more, or make adjustments to the way that you're doing your service delivery to improve this metric, but to improve your overall service delivery. And that's the core theme here. What are the pieces of data I have to look at to improve how well I deliver my service? FCR being one of them. You know, open and close rates, and they all speak to you. They all tell you a story about what's happening in your service delivery. And this is just yet another way to look at the way you're doing service delivery and figuring out how you may improve it. So
Another way of looking at FCR resolution, first call resolution, is, you know, do it against a team, do it against a technician, right? I mean, in this case, this dashboard, when it comes up, is I'm showing certain statistics here against individual technicians, but you could even include first call resolution here against your technicians, so you can see who's more successful than the others. Is it because people are cherry picking tickets? They're cherry picking the easy ones and leaving the hard ones for others. You know, how is that working out, right? So you could even do first call resolution against the actual team itself versus an individual. In this case, we didn't do first call resolution on this particular widget, I should say, for the different teams. But you could even do it against your teams. How are they doing? You know, why is one team struggling more than the other? You know, why is one team more successful? You know, do they have a good leader? Do they have good staff? You know, do they have the training? These are all valuable pieces of information that you could glean from the first call resolution metrics.
yeah, definitely, Sean, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, what kind of goes hand in hand is, I'm going to go back the dashboard here, and we're going to go talk about MTTR here for a second. So in this case, in this particular dashboard, it was done as MTTR for in working hours and also in after hours coverage. Now remember, we define MTTR as a ticket that was created and how long does it take to resolve that ticket. So it can be looked at from a high level such as like this, we're seeing, oh, in January, it took 614 hours to close, average of 614 hours to close all those tickets. Is
That's
that
quite the
right?
performance.
Yeah, it's one I'd be kind of scratching my head at and going,
I would say,
what's
yeah.
going on here? Yeah. Whereas you see further on down the line here in June, we're taking only 123 hours to close incident tickets. So what happened between January and what happened between June? Did we bring new people on? Did we change some performance? Did we change the system? Right? How did we make it better for these staff members? How did they improve their numbers? These are all
And I think,
questions, and sometimes you get more than answers. But
yeah, I think it's also
sure.
important to realize too that MTTR between incident and service request, like, is your MTTR on your service request better than your MTTR in your incidents? Why is it that we can process a request faster when something is broken, we're taking longer to fix it? There might be legitimate reasons for that. Obviously, performing a request is a lot easier than necessarily than solutioning an incident, but are your team members sort of shying away from doing the incidents and that type of thing? So it's important to realize there is going to be a difference between the two. And in this case, these are overall MTTRs, but applying MTTR you can apply it to not just overall. You can apply MTTR much more granularly across a service if you want, or what's the mean time to resolution on service, or what's the mean time outside of working hours, inside of working hours, and different things like that. And again, they all could differ, but the MTTR tells you basically how long is a ticket living before it gets resolved. And the most important thing that you're going to take from that is, how does it feel like to be a customer of your service? If I put a ticket into your service and I'm going to expect to wait this amount of time, that's my expectation, because that is your average mean time to resolution for a particular service or incidents or a service request. But when you're doing service level management, that information can also help you level set expectations when you're developing your SLAs. Because when you're developing your SLAs and you have baseline data to go from, you can say, you know what, we're going to create an SLA that says, you got to be resolved by this time and respond by this time, et cetera, et cetera. And if your team aren't capable of hitting that SLA, then you could be in a whole lot of trouble there. So it allows you to level set your expectations of the performance of your IT service delivery. And when you are developing your SLAs in service level management, you actually have real numbers to say, on average, this is how long it's taking us to get some of these closed or some of these resolved. So when we're building out those SLAs and any agreements with our customers, whether they're internal, external, so on and so forth, it allows you to be more realistic and level setting what the customer can expect when it comes to service delivery. So using MTTR data helps you feed that into that. And then as a KPI, you can use KPIs again to try to gauge what's your performance. If on average it takes 2.5 days to resolve an incident, and we really want that down to 2 days, set the KPI to 2 days. It's not that much of a difference, and say, hey guys, over the next 2 quarters, we want to bring this number down from 2.5 days down to 2 days. This is where we're going to set the KPI. Let's try to make this happen. Let's investigate how we can do things better. Let's see how we can reduce that overall ticket duration and sort of work towards that as a goal as a team. And we feel as if we're performing a great service when we're under 2 days or under when it comes to the average duration of a ticket when it's related to an incident. But this also curtails into something else, which different tickets have different priorities, and different priorities, potentially, different tickets also have different complications. And how well are we doing, not just against our own indicator, that bar that we're setting for ourselves with that KPI, but how well are we doing with our customer in terms of saying, we're going to deliver this service, but we're really delivering that service, and how compliant are we with the SLA? So Sean, with that, I'll segue into the next section.
Thank you, Rob. And I mean, this is what we're looking at here is a dashboard that's showing overall totals for SLA, KPIs, broken down by priority. Now we see here that on priority 1, 2, 3, and 4, the target is set at greater than 90%. If we look at priority 4 tickets, we're doing great for January, February, March, and April, but that's a priority 4 ticket. Whereas with our priority 1 tickets, we're not even meeting the target of the SLA of 90% or greater from January to June. And that can be a real hindrance, because priority 1 tickets are supposed to be dealt with a lot faster and a lot more efficiently than a priority 4 ticket. So why are we failing in priority 4 versus priority 1? And it could be, as Rob stated, it could be the complexity of the ticket, the individuals working the ticket, all kinds of things. But this would be a great point in time when you see that month after month you're failing in priority 1 to meet your SLA. Maybe instead of target of greater than 90%, maybe we should bring it back down and say, have a target of greater than 70% or greater than 60%. And then say, okay, guys, we're going to achieve a target of greater than 60% this quarter. By next quarter, we want to be greater than 70%. And that way it reduces a little bit of stress and frustration on your staff and your morale and of your department or your team, etc. And then you can start seeing some real achievements. And once, as we know, people start achieving goals and they're realistic, then they get excited, and then they become to take ownership of that goal and of that process. And they want to feel part of it in order to reach that metric every time, every month, or every quarter, depending on how you created it.
Yeah, right? We want to set people up to succeed, not fail. I mean, look at the priority 2 example here. You have hundreds of tickets coming in over the months for priority 2. The target is 90% or greater. However, you're not quite hitting it. You're hitting 81, 82, 87. You're noticing month after end, there's actually an improvement. However, you're just not hitting the target. If that target had been lowered to, say, 85%, with the hopes of eventually getting to 90% down the road, then you know what? The team would be feeling success. They would have failed in January, failed in February, managed to do and hit the target for March, hit the target for April, not quite hit the target for May, hit the target for June. But that is what we're talking about. Make it challenging, but yet achievable. And then once they're starting to consistently hit 85%, then move it to 87% and slowly sort of move it up, and to the point where you're challenging the team to move forward and to get better at what they do. But at the same time, it's management's responsibility to go in and say, okay, what changes can we make? Let's investigate how we're doing what we're doing. Are the ways that we can create greater efficiency to achieve these goals? And can we change our process a little bit? Can we educate a little bit better? Can we modify how we're doing business a little bit more in order to improve that performance? But these metrics are the starting point for you to be able to investigate how you're doing, what you're doing, and then investigate further as to what can we do better. Because when you start placing these metrics against your services, your teams, your individuals, et cetera, you're able to investigate further, you're able to see what is working, what is not working, and figure out how to do what's working more, so to speak. If this service is having poor MTTR or poor SLA compliance, and when you're looking at it and you say, you know what, tickets get escalated over to this team's taking forever to do anything with the tickets, there's where our problem lies. This is why we're breaching our SLAs. This is why we're not hitting our targets for our KPIs. This is why, let's address that, because that often happens. There's more than one support group within inside an organization, potentially, that could be working on any given ticket. So that would spark that investigation. But without the metrics in order to get started to determine where are we at right now, knowing where you want to be, this allows you to carve out that path to get there.
Yeah, and plus also this particular dashboard is a really good example of widgets that are used in a very clear, very informative fashion to show, breached SLAs, met SLAs, targets, whether they've been achieved or not, percentages, it gives anybody that looks at this particular dashboard the information they need that can be digested in a very quick and easy manner and understood really well too. You know, but I guess at the end of the day, last but not least, that when you're starting out on your KPI journey, one of the things you need to do is it needs to be gamified. Make it exciting, make it a little challenging. Then that way you get interest from everybody into it. Throw in a dash of competitiveness into the whole KPI metric element, get engagement, and that way staff and managers will take ownership of these particular metrics and make it work for their team, their department, overall for the organization, which is the ultimate goal. Because ultimately, if the organization does well, everybody does well, right?
So I guess right now what we can do is open it up to any questions that anyone may have around KPIs, around metrics. Anyone want to know, any questions that you may have in general, just about the content that we're talking about today, what metrics, are you having trouble with your metrics, are you having trouble setting your KPIs, et cetera, feel free to post a question within the webinar. What I think is important though, another moral of the story here is it takes a community. It's not just any one given person driving this. It has to be a top-down approach where your management is behind it. You need to have everything sort of on board with that. On board with that process, because it does. If you want to try to make management changes, if you're trying to make adjustments to everything, then it's really difficult unless everybody's on the same page. So yeah.
And one thing I'm going to have you do, Sean, is just bump real quick to the PowerPoint slide so I can invite everyone to our quest for collaboration as they're pulling together their
questions. We did have one question. Someone asked, is there a workshop that shows how to create these metrics on a dashboard? That's a really great suggestion. We could certainly look at developing a workshop on some of the metrics that you've seen today. These are just samples. The data was just sample data. But we can certainly look at something like that for the future, which shows you how to build some of these metrics out, like how to actually build the widgets and the searches that drive those widgets and stuff like that. I think it's really important aspect to understand too is that the dashboards are a collection of widgets. Widgets are visual representation of searches, but the searches need to come from the data. So some of this data is really, some of it's out of the box, and some of it may not be. So you have to make sure you have the right fields and the right information that you're tracking on your tickets to ensure that you're able to report on that information. And we'll be way more than willing to help you out with your dashboard development and what you're looking to do in terms of what information you're trying to draw out from that. However, maybe in the near future, we might be able to put some type of a basic workshop together to sort of show the basics of what we've shown, some of the basics here today. And these, we might be able to do something like that in the future for sure. So it's a great suggestion, and we'll definitely take that under consideration.
So I will give everyone a few minutes if they want to put in any last minute questions. But in the meantime, I'd like to invite all of you to our quest for collaboration. So this is a weekly meeting that we saw a need for in 2020. And we bring together our Cherwell customers and friends and anyone out there for an hour a week to discuss problems, challenges, and any other Cherwell questions that you might have. As a group, and we share knowledge and solve problems. You can sign up and join us when you can on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you head over to our website, www.excaliburdata.com, and then under the resources tab and upcoming events is where you'll find it. And it doesn't look like we had any other questions come in right now. So I wanted to thank Rob and Sean for presenting today. And if anyone thinks of any specific questions that you might have for your organization, you can email myself. I'll be copied on the follow-up email that I said will go out tomorrow. You also could email us at info@excaliburdata.com for a question that might just come to mind later. But Sean, I'll have you close us out with maybe some final thoughts.
Some final thoughts. If you're thinking of dipping your toes into the KPI waters, just go ahead and do it. It is well worth it, and it can be very rewarding and can be very telling as to the information that you uncover when you start getting down the KPI road. So
And
definitely
don't
get
be
into it.
afraid. Don't be afraid of discovering how bad your service delivery is, because knowing where you're at is the first step of figuring out how to where you want to be. So if you want to be great at service delivery and you want to be great at what you're doing as an IT component within your organization, you first have to figure out where you're at right now. And when you figure that out, it's a lot easier to find the low-hanging fruit, make the adjustments, and start to work towards where you want to be in providing a great service to your customers. And on the flip side of that, the customers having a great perception of their IT within their organization, thinking you guys are great, they do great service delivery, it's always fantastic, we have a fantastic IT team. If you want that to be the feedback, start with starting to get the right metrics, setting your KPIs, setting your goals, and using that data to make sound management decisions on making adjustments to the way your service is being delivered so that you can improve that overall quality of service delivery, which always equates to better customer experience.
Thank you so much. We will see you all next time.
See you, everybody.
See you later. Bye.